Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is January 30th, 2026. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that if you are looking out your window right now, unless you're very lucky, it probably looks a little gray.
A little bit, yeah. It's that time of year.
It really is. It's that time of year where winter feels permanent and, spring just feels like a rumor.
A very distant rumor.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, and this is why we are here today, if you look at the calendar in a very specific way, if you look at it through the lens of the sources we have on the desk today, we are actually standing right on the precipice of a massive spiritual season.
We are. We aren't just waiting for the snow to melt.
No.
No, we are looking at the approach of Ligden.
The Ligden. Now, for the listener who might not be familiar with Macedonian or, the Orthodox tradition, we are talking about Easter.
Right.
But looking at the research stack you've brought in, we've got liturgical calendars, cultural guides, community notes. This isn't just a single Sunday with some pastel decorations and a chocolate rabbit, is it?
No, far from it. Velejden literally translates to the great day. It is the absolute pinnacle of the Macedonian Orthodox liturgical year.
It's a great day.
And what's fascinating about the sources is that they reveal this intricate blend. You have the strict ancient Byzantine liturgy, which has barely changed in over 1,000 years.
Wow.
And it's mixed with these very specific centuries-old folk customs that have just survived generations.
It feels like a journey.
It is a journey. It's a whole narrative arc. It takes you from a place of somber ascetic discipline, literally denying the body through deep mourning, and then finally into this explosive joy of the resurrection.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We want to guide you through that transition. We aren't just going to list dates. We want to unpack the why behind these rituals. Look at the specific calendar for 2026, and we're going to ground this in reality by zooming in on how this plays out locally.
Right.
Specifically, we're looking at the St. Clement of Origen Cathedral in East York for our listeners in the GTA.
Which is a perfect case study because it shows how these ancient agrarian traditions, how they adapt and really thrive in a modern city environment.
Okay, so let's get our bearings. It's January 30th right now. When is the finish line? When is Velejden in 2026?
In 2026, Orthodox Easter falls on Sunday, April 12th.
Okay, April 12th. So doing the math, we have a bit of a buffer. Why are we talking about this in January?
Because you can't just show up for Velejden. The preparation is, it's half the experience. You have to remember, this isn't a weekend event. It's a season.
It's a whole season.
Yeah, the lead up involves the Great Lent, which is a 40-day period.
Right, and looking at the dates here, that kickoff is coming up surprisingly fast.
It is. But before we even talk about the fasting, there's a day in the calendar that I find psychologically fascinating. It's called Prochka. Or Forgiveness Sunday. In 2026, that falls on February 22.
I was reading the notes on this, and honestly, the concept terrifies me a little bit. Can you explain what happens on Prochka?
Well, it's deeply psychological and I think incredibly healthy, even if it is uncomfortable. It's the custom of asking family and friends for forgiveness. You literally clear the air.
So you just go into your mom, your brother, your neighbor, and you just ask.
Yes. The traditional greeting is "forgive me," and the response is "may God forgive you," and "I forgive you." It's all about clearing your conscience before entering what they call the spiritual combat of the fast.
I love that phrasing, spiritual combat.
Yeah.
But just think about the social utility of that. How many petty grudges do we carry around just because we never have a formal excuse to drop them?
Exactly. It forces a reset. You cannot enter Lent, which is all about humility and introspection, if you're holding on to anger at your cousin for something they said at Christmas. You have to wipe the slate clean.
So you resolve your interpersonal drama on the 22nd, then the very next day, things get physical.
Yes. February 23, 2026 is Chist Ponedjeljak, or Clean Monday, and that is the official start of the Great Lent.
And the fast begins.
And when the sources say fast, for the strict observers, they aren't talking about giving up chocolate or social media.
Let's clarify that, because fasting means a lot of different things to different people.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
We are talking about essentially a vegan diet, no meat, no dairy, no eggs, for 40 days.
Wow. That is a significant lifestyle shift.
It is. And it creates a physical need for the celebration. By the time April rolls around, you aren't just spiritually ready for the feast. Your body is literally craving it. The hunger makes the eventual feast that much more meaningful.
Okay, let's fast forward. We've done the 40 days. We've asked for forgiveness. We've been eating a lot of beans and lentils. Now we're in the home stretch Holy Week.
Right.
This is where the rituals get really specific and I think visually fascinating. I want to start with Holy Thursday.
Veliki Utvortok. In 2026, this lands on April 9.
And this is where the eggs come in. But this is not about hiding plastic eggs in the backyard.
No, this is a ritual that feels very, very ancient. Tradition dictates that on Holy Thursday morning, before the sun even rises, the first 3 eggs are dyed.
Before sunrise. That's specific.
It is. In folklore, the pre-dawn time is often seen as special, a time of protection. You do the work before the world wakes up. And the color is non-negotiable. They are dyed red.
Only red.
Only red.
Why specifically red?
It's the ultimate symbol. It represents the blood of Christ, the sacrifice. But red is also the color of life, vitality, and obviously the joy of resurrection. It captures the whole paradox of Easter in just one color.
That's incredible.
But what's really interesting is what happens with those first 3 eggs.
Right, I saw this in the notes. There's a hierarchy. You don't just put them in a bowl for breakfast.
Not at all. The very first egg dyed is called the Isisovo Jesus egg.
Oh, Jesus' egg.
Yes. And this egg is treated as a sacred object. It is set aside, usually placed near the family icon or the home's prayer corner. It's believed to be a protector of the household for the coming year.
That is amazing. So it transforms a simple food item into a kind of spiritual talisman. And it just stays there for the whole year.
The whole year, until next Easter, when it's often buried in the garden or a vineyard to return that blessing to the earth.
And what about the other 2 eggs?
The second and third are typically dedicated to the house and to the field or, to your work. It's an old agrarian tradition, blessing the harvest, that has adapted. So even if you work in an office in downtown Toronto, you're essentially blessing your livelihood.
So Thursday kicks things off with this quiet domestic ritual before dawn, but then the tone shifts dramatically the next day. Let's talk about Good Friday or Veliki Pitok.
April 10th, 2026. This is the heavy day. If you look at the liturgical structure, this is the day of Christ's death. It is a day of strict fasting. Some people don't even drink water until sunset and just mourning. And
there's a very specific physical ritual that happens in the church on this day. It involves a table and a shroud.
Yes, the plashtanica. This is a shroud, an embroidered cloth depicting the burial of Christ. It's placed on a table in the center of the church, which is adorned with flowers to represent the tomb.
And this isn't just something you look at from the pews.
No. And this is where the embodied nature of the religion really comes through. The faithful literally crawl under the table.
I've seen photos of this at St. Clement's. It's quite moving. You have adults, elderly people, children, everyone getting down on the ground.
It symbolizes entering Christ's tomb. You are physically lowering yourself, humbling yourself, and participating in that burial. You aren't just an observer. You are a participant.
You're part of it.
You're part of it. They also offer flowers to the tomb. It's a funeral service.
And speaking of funeral services, there's a procession later that evening, right?
Yes. In the evening, there is a procession that circles the outside of the church 3 times. This represents the funeral procession of Christ. The bells toll a funeral dirge. It's very, very solemn.
I want to bring this into the local context for a second. We mentioned St. Clement of Ohrid Cathedral in East York at 76 Overly Believey D. The sources say this is a huge day there.
It is. Families visit throughout the entire day on Good Friday. It's described as a quiet, reflective time. It's especially significant for children crawling under the table, for a blessing is a core memory for anyone growing up in this tradition.
A moment of stillness.
A moment of stillness before the storm of celebration.
And that storm breaks on Saturday night. This is the climax of the entire season.
Holy Saturday, April 11. The service usually begins around 11:30 p.m.
Set the scene for us. What is the atmosphere inside the church at 11:30?
Darkness. Complete darkness. The lights in the church are extinguished. It symbolizes the darkness of the tomb, the confusion of the world without hope. Everyone is just waiting in the dark.
I know that.
The priest emerges with a single lit candle. This represents the light of the world. And from that one candle, he lights the candles of the people in the front.
And they pass it back.
They turn and light the candles of the people behind them.
So you have this chain reaction of light spreading through the cathedral.
Exactly. It builds to what they call the midnight cry. The priest leads the congregation outside the church. because the news is too big for the building.
I love that.
They go outside, often into the courtyard or parking lot, and at the stroke of midnight, literally as the date turns to Sunday, April 12th, he proclaims Christos Voskreси.
Which translates to Christ is risen.
Exactly. And the people respond with a roar, and I mean a roar. Vistina Voskreసి. Indeed, he is risen.
And that phrase isn't just for that moment, right? It becomes something else.
No, that becomes the standard greeting. For the next 40 days, you don't say hello, you say Christos Voskreси, and the other person responds Vistina Voskreси. It weaves the theology right into daily conversation. You're confirming the miracle with every single interaction.
Now, looking at the Toronto experience again, at Overly Bilevity, this moment sounds electric.
It's incredible. The sources describe thousands of people gathering. They are all holding lambadi, which are these decorated candles. The area becomes incredibly vibrant, and when that unison shout happens, it's truly powerful. You have thousands of voices reclaiming joy at the exact same second.
They don't just stand there, they move again.
Right. Remember the 3 circles on Friday for the funeral?
The solemn ones, yeah.
Yeah, we do the 3 circles around the church again, but the context is completely flipped.
How so?
Now it's accompanied by the ringing of bells, joyous ringing, and the singing of the troparion, which is the victory hymn. Christos Voskreси od mrtvit. Christ is risen from the dead. It marks the official end of mourning. The sorrow of Friday is washed away by the movement of Sunday.
So midnight hits, the bells ring, everyone is shouting, indeed he is risen. Then we get to the part that I think everyone, especially the kids, and let's be honest, the adults too, looks forward to.
Oh, yeah.
The Battle of the Eggs.
Krja sojuska. The egg cracking.
I love that it's called a battle. How does this work?
It usually happens right after the midnight service or at lunch the next day. Everyone picks one of those red eggs we talked about. You hold your egg, usually covering most of it with your hand so only the tip shows, and you tap it against someone else's egg.
It's like a duel. There's strategy involved here.
Oh, absolutely. People test the eggs on their teeth to hear the density of the shell. They look for the pointy end versus the round end, and there are stakes. The person whose egg remains uncracked is said to have the best health and luck for the coming year.
I can imagine the bragging rights involved. But knowing this tradition, there's probably a deeper meaning than just winning a game.
Of course. Everything is symbolic. The shell of the egg represents the sealed tomb. When you crack the shell, it represents Christ breaking the bonds of death and emerging from the tomb.
So you're reenacting it.
So even in this fun, competitive game at the dinner table, you are enacting the resurrection. You are breaking the tomb open.
That is really beautiful. It turns a game into a theological statement. And after the cracking comes the eating. We have to talk about the feast.
The Great Lent is over. The fast is broken. So the menu is elaborate.
What's on the table? I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Well, you have kuzinjak.
Kuzinjak. Okay. Describe that for us.
It's a sweet, braided, leavened bread. It's often filled with raisins or poppy seeds. It's just rich, buttery, sweet, everything you haven't eaten for 40 days.
And the main course.
Traditionally, it's żagniako lamb. This symbolizes the Lamb of God. It connects back to the Passover lamb as well.
Have to drink.
Macedonian wines, naturally. Vrunek is a staple, and it's usually served with fresh salads like shopska tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, Cyrene cheese, or snežana. It's a heavy, joyous communal meal.
And speaking of community, the notes mention that in Toronto, this often spills out of the homes.
Yes, following the Sunday morning liturgy, which is usually at 10 a.m., for those who didn't make the midnight service, it's common for the community to gather at local Macedonian-owned spots or the banquet halls at the cathedral. It's about being together. You survived the fast together, now you feast together.
So Sunday is the peak. But as I was reading through the source material, I noticed the timeline doesn't actually stop there. There's something quite touching that happens on Monday, April 13th.
This is one of the most poignant parts of the Macedonian tradition. It's called Svetolvaznesin, or Easter Monday.
Where do people go on this day?
They go to the cemetery.
That seems counterintuitive. You just have this massive party for life, and now you go to the graves.
But think about the message of Easter. It's about the defeat of death. So families visit the graves to share the joy of the resurrection with their deceased loved ones.
How do they do that? Do they bring flowers?
They do, but specifically, they often leave a red egg at the gravesite.
Wow.
It connects the past, present, and future. It's a way of saying, this victory over death applies to you too. It keeps the ancestors as part of the living community celebration. They aren't left out of the party just because they've passed on.
That brings such a sense of continuity to it. It's not just about the people currently standing in the room.
Exactly. It expands the community beyond the boundaries of time.
So let's unpack this whole journey. We start on January 30th, 2026, looking ahead. We go through the cleaning of the slate on Prushka, the 40 days of discipline, the dyeing of the eggs before sunrise, the crawling under the table in morning, the explosion of light at midnight, the egg cracking, the feasting, and finally bringing that joy back to the ancestors.
It is a complete cycle. It touches every part of the human experience.
For the listener, whether they are religious or just culturally curious, why does this matter? What's the takeaway here?
I think the relevance lies in how this tradition processes human emotion. We live in a world that often wants to skip to the good part. We want the celebration without the preparation. We want the resurrection without the death.
Right.
But religion shows us that the joy of Sunday is only possible because of the sorrow of Friday.
You have to go through the dark to appreciate the light.
Precisely. And it offers a tangible, physical way to do that. You aren't just thinking about grief. You are crawling under a shroud. You aren't just thinking about joy, you are shouting it in a crowd of thousands at midnight. It grounds these big abstract concepts in physical reality.
It engages the senses, the taste of the lamb, the sound of the bells, the sight of the candlelight. It's completely immersive.
And it does it together. That's the key. It's not a solitary meditation, it's a collective experience.
Which leads us to a final thought. We always like to leave you with something to chew on.
Here is what strikes me looking at all these sources. In a modern world where we increasingly celebrate holidays in isolation, maybe a Zoom call, maybe a quick dinner, often alone, what does it do to a community psyche to physically enact a funeral and a resurrection together en masse every single year?
That is a fascinating question. Does it make them more resilient?
One has to wonder. When you walk through death and back to life together every spring, surely that bonds a community in a way that nothing else can. It creates a shared resilience that is hard to break.
A shared journey through the dark and back into the light. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the calendar for 2026. Whether you'll be on overly BLVD or just cracking an egg at home, thanks for joining us.
Christos Voskres.
Vestina Voskres. We'll see you in the next deep dive.